The employer in you. God created you an employer. You were born an employer. Trapped inside each one of us is an employer yearning to be released from the employee trap in which we tend to find ourselves because of what society has made us to be. But in the actual sense, when you search scripture by going to Genesis 1, verse 26 through to verse 30, you find that you and I were created by God to be employers. Why do I say so? I say so because in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God started by saying, "Let us make man in our own image, after our own likeness, and let him have dominion over all that which I have created." Cattle is mentioned, the birds of the air, fish, and many other resources were designed by God for man to have dominion over such resources. So in Genesis 1, verse 26, I've come up with what I call the press conference in heaven, meaning that God, the one in authority, the creator of the heavens and the earth, was able to come up with a policy statement concerning you and I. Though he spoke to mean Adam, but you and I are descendants of Adam. And what was applicable to Adam and Eve is also applicable to you and I, and much more when we have Jesus Christ coming to die on the cross of Calvary in order for him to redeem us from the loss of our place here on earth by the coming in of the enemy to steal from us. But Christ came to restore the dominion that we might have lost, or the dominion which we were able to lose during the time of the fall of Adam and Eve. So in the Genesis 1, verse 26, we see God giving a policy statement and coming up with a policy, and the policy was to create man, and man was to be created in his image and after his own likeness, and also that man was to have dominion. So what we see in Genesis 1, verse 26, is that there was a policy statement given, and that policy statement contained a policy, and the policy was about man having dominion over the earth. And also within that Genesis 1, verse 26, we see the policy intent of the creator, the designer, the manufacturer. God was able to create, not only to create, but to design the creation of man, and then he was able to create man. And therefore in Genesis 1, verse 27, we see what I call policy implementation by God, by him creating man in his own image, just as he had designed. He created man in his own image, after his own likeness. And then in Genesis 1, verse 28, we see God empowering man. I call it a police empowerment of man by God, by him, God blessing man with a blessing. And then we also see the same empowerment in Genesis 1, verse 29 through to 30, where God told man to behold the trees and the fruit, and then the seed that was to be found in the fruit for the purpose of man's continuity. So God was empowering man to undertake business by taking advantage of the empowerment that God had given man, the seed in the fruit, and also the animals that God was able to give man to use those for food. But within also that aspect of food, there was also seed for purposes of continuity. And also coming back to Genesis 1 verse 28, we see God giving out to man a policy direction and the process through which that policy which he had for dominion for man, having dominion was now given to man in terms of the steps that man was supposed to take in order for him to have dominion. So God told man to be fruitful, number one. Number two, he told man to multiply his fruit. And number three, God told man to fill the earth or replenish the earth. This is an aspect of distribution of man's fruit that he will have produced and then multiplied, and from multiplication, then going into filling the earth with that fruit or distributing that fruit. And ultimately, the fourth point, the fourth strategy was for man to be able to subdue. So we have a 4-point strategy. 1, be fruitful. 2, fill the earth. 3, 1, be fruitful. 2, multiply your fruit. Number 3, fill the earth. Number 4, subdue. And when this was to be done, then man was going to have dominion. And that's why we find in Psalms 8, verse 4 through to 8, the psalmist saying that, who is man that you are mindful of him, the son of man that you care for him, for you have given him dominion over your creation, and then the cattle, the fish, the birds of the air, and other resources have been mentioned, including those which have not been mentioned. In short, the psalmist is looking at the creation that God was able to create, and is quite amazed with seeing how excellent the name of the Lord is in all the earth. He's amazed with the excellence of the name of the Lord that is seen through his creation. So God's design was a design for man to be somebody who was going to have dominion over all his creation. Man was supposed to go through value addition by identifying some value chain from which to operate, and then within that value chain, man was able to be fruitful, multiply his fruit, fill the earth with his fruit, and then subdue the earth so that he could ultimately have dominion. And in this case, it is basically an employer, somebody who has control over his productivity, who will be able to be somebody who would be in the position to have dominion over what God was able to create. So basically, God created you to be an employer. You were designed to be an employer. There is an employer in you. God made you an employer. Thank you.